Hi, everyone. We're just going to give a few more moments to get everyone signed in, and we'll be right with you. Okay, well, that's good. Hey, thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our UAD 3.6 webinar. We're really excited to have everyone here to talk about this new venture that we're all about to embark on. This has been in the works for quite a while, and so it's always nice to get together and have some conversations around them. If you've seen another one of our presentations on 3.6, this one is going to look a little bit different. There's the new stuff that's come out since probably the last time you were introduced to this stuff, but at the same time, we've taken a little bit of a different approach of looking at what we're trying to do here as it relates to lenders specifically. A lot of our focus before was really on appraisers, but the truth is this is pretty impactful across the board for appraisers, for lenders, for underwriters, for loan officers, for processors, and also for your referral partners, your real estate agents as well. And so we're trying our best to kind of educate everyone around these problems and also work through solutions together. So we're going to just take a little bit of time here to talk about why it is that we find ourselves talking about this now. Uh, if you are like me and like many other people in our business, you've kind of vaguely known about this for a long time, but I have personally chose to ignore it for quite a while until a couple of months ago because it had been in the works. It's been in the works for literally 10 years at this point. They were going to introduce this stuff before COVID, and they decided against that. Thank God. And so this has been in the works for a very long time, and until recently, it really hasn't felt like a pressing problem for most of us. It seemed to be a little abstract, and now we're really getting into it, and we're really getting down to the wire of when this is going to start for all submissions through Fannie and Freddie. And so I think it might be time to start paying attention and start to doing some practice and talking around processes and things of that nature. Uh, Limit to production started in January. I can tell you I've talked to quite a few people here, and very few people did limit to production. And by very few, I haven't found anyone. And I can also say that we are really at the forefront of doing any. If you've done some, our organization has done up until now. We're ultimately in January the optional kind of you could start submitting them started, and that really jump started some people even talking about it. But our organization has done I think 4 or 5 at this point. And I spoke to someone at a national appraisal management company that's probably the largest in the country, and they had still at the same time done less than 10. So this is not like we're being slow here. It's really the uptake across the board is pretty slow. But Fannie and Freddie are pretty adamant that they're not going to change the November 2nd deadline for when all new submissions have to be in this new format. And so as we move closer to that, we're obviously going to get quite a few more people interested in also doing these, but also just kind of pushing everyone towards them as we go. The biggest change that we're going to see here is that we're doing away with all these different forms, and we're really going to have one dynamic appraisal form with a few exceptions. Technically, there are 3 different types. There's a completion report, which is our current final inspection, or a 1004D. There's also a restricted update, which is also a 1004D, but it's the one that you get when you need an appraisal update. It's the one where the appraisal is over 6 months old, but it's less than a year, and you just need the appraiser to say that the values haven't declined. That's going to be now called a restricted update. And everything else that you need appraised is all going to go into the URAR. The URAR stands for the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. And the 1004, the 1073, the 2055, these are all being rolled into this one. The form itself, we're going to get into it, is dynamic in nature. And so, the fields that you would normally see on the 1073 condo form will appear whenever the property is marked as a condo. But if it's not marked as a condo, those fields won't be there. And so this dynamic mentality and approach is really one of the cornerstones of what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it as uniform as possible, but also allowing for additional information and additional ways of gathering data. And make no mistake, this is all about gathering data. This is Fannie and Freddie's way to really centralize their data sets that they use for various things, but also a way for them to grow it. We're going from around 200 standardized data points currently that in the current setup to what could be over 1,000 for really complex properties. And every single data point they are, trying to make as uniform as possible. And every single data point they are putting into their own database in order to run their different models that they use across the board. And often that's, if you ever have a CU score, that is a statistical model that they've created to help them figure out whether the model's value and the appraiser's value are similar enough to decrease risk. And so this new data set is all going to be feeding into that. So the legacy forms, they're all being replaced with the one dynamic form. It's all going to be picked based on the kind of the property type is going to decide what appears. This is the summary page that you're going to see. They'll all look like this. So every appraisal you'll get will have this page, and it will look just like this. There's no more trying to find different pieces. Where is this piece in this form? Where is this piece of data in this form? It will be the same place every single time. And it's very structured. It's intentionally that way. And that will be probably to our benefit as lenders and as people who have to review appraisals, because there's no longer going to be pages and pages of addenda that appraisers can use in order to mask things that they might think will come up. So that's all going away. And so now it's a great deal number of checkboxes, but and a few places where appraisers can write long thoughts and analysis. But ultimately, that those sections will always be in the same place, and that analysis will always be in the same place. It's less form and more data. That's really the point here. That the idea of the appraisal report as a thing you sit down and read in a narrative format is something they're trying to push us away from. It's not just a redesign of what you see currently. It's a whole different recreation. It's a rebuild. And that's one reason why they, instead of calling it because it's currently 2.6, instead of calling it 2.7 or 2.8, they went 3.6 in order to really show the fact that this is a total rebuild as we move past these little individual data points that we've all been accustomed to looking for, right? Like age or square footage, and to really get into some fine details, which we'll go into in a little bit. There's, the format is residential is one report type, as we said. The fields are dynamic and the structure is consistent. And that is the real key here as you look through everything. There also is going to be an updated UCDP. So the thing that we all upload our appraisals into in order to get the SSRs, that is going to be updated. We have looked at a few of these SSRs, and while it is updated, it is ultimately the same information, a little bit in a different format. But the uploads themselves really focus on automation, that we can now upload things and have it just go into different places. Review and consistency. We're going to be having a lot of tools that are out there for reviewing that are going to really strengthen our ability to assess risk and completeness at the appraisal level, to make sure everything that we need covered is covered, and everything that Fannie needs covered is covered, and everything that Freddie Mac needs covered is covered. As we know, they all have different guidelines, and these automated tools will help us break apart whose guidelines we're trying to meet and to make sure that we're doing it correctly. Also, with the single XML upload that you might be used to is going away. They'll now be uploading zip files, which does actually contain an XML inside of it, but it also contains all the individual image files. So the zip file is pretty large, and so it gets uploaded into whatever software you're using as for appraisal management. If you're using, if we're your AMC, then it gets uploaded to us, and all of that is submitted to Fannie and Freddie. All of that is submitted through UCDP in its entirety, and so now they have these individual photos as well. And this structure allows for automated reviews, but I think as we move into this realm of AI, you'll also see that it is going to allow for some automated reviews of photos in a way that has not been allowed for in the past. So if an appraiser has indicated that the property has flat ceilings throughout and the photos themselves show vaulted ceilings, there'll be, due to these uploads, there'll be the ability to go through these photos automatically and highlight missing issues and also just errors that are there in order to get the appraisal corrected. Details, details, details. That's the reality of what we're moving into. The data collection is going to be significantly more robust for appraisers. Uh, Actually, I correct that. The data collection is going to be a little bit more complex and robust for appraisers than it is currently. The truth is, most of this data we were collecting. It's just the way we're reporting it back is much more uniform and much more intentional. Uh, my favorite one is ceiling styles. So if a property had cathedral ceilings, I would normally note that in a narrative, or I would take a photo of it and show cathedral ceilings. And it goes into my ideas of quality, and it goes into my comparison to other properties. But now there's a box for that. So now if you have coffered ceilings, you have cathedral ceilings, there's a box for that needs to be checked. And that data is now consistently reported across all different property types. And that's really different for appraisers. That's really different for lenders, because ultimately you're now going to have to be looking for those kinds of things to make sure the correct boxes are checked. And it could ultimately become cumbersome. There's not a whole lot, honestly, of ridiculous pieces of data they want. The only one that I've really come across where I think, why in the world do they need to know that, is your front door elevation. For some unknown reason, Fannie and Freddie have decided they want to know how far off the ground the front door is. So appraisers are going to have to start measuring that, or doing their best to figure out what that is. I'm not sure what they're thinking that you're supposed to do in the winter whenever there's a foot of snow in front of the front door, but ultimately that's what they're asking for, and so that's one of the data points that we have to start collecting. I still, for the life of me, can't quite figure out why that's an important piece of data, but we'll figure that out at some point, I'm sure. Another really important piece about these details is, and the form itself, is that it's been designed in a way that allows for them to change things later much more easily than they can now. Right. So it's easy for them to come in and say, you know what, we don't need the front door elevation anymore. We're going to remove that field from all of your appraisal softwares. And then that's done. As of now, obviously the current forms they were issued in 2005, and they really haven't been changed since then. The way we fill them out has changed, but the actual forms themselves have been the same for about 21 years. And so the ability to update and remove and also add things has just been extremely limited, and that will be something that's corrected with UAD 3.6. The data itself is going to be much more uniform. So this is one of the grids of your sales comparison approach. One of the major issues I feel like that's different about this is that this grid is now 2 pages long. So you'll have comparables 1, 2, and 3, and there'll be a page 1 and a page 2, because the amount of data that they're collecting on the grid is much more significant. It's also much more granular. So what you'll also see is the appraisers have the ability to decide whether they're going to make adjustments for a much more refined piece of information. as of now, you have about three different other lines at the bottom that you kind of put whatever you want to put there. Instead of that, there's just spaces for more things. But this is ultimately what it will look like. It's all the information that you're used to seeing. It's just a little bit more complex and robust. This is the another section of the same grid. You'll see here that they've actually on the grid, we now have a kitchen and a bathroom line that shows the different types of finishes in those and whether they've been updated or not. The same with quality and condition. So obviously our quality and condition are the same currently. The ratings themselves, the definitions are changing a little bit, but what you'll notice here is there is an interior quality and condition rating, and there's an exterior quality and condition rating, and then there's also an overall quality and condition rating. So you're going to have three different types at this point. On here, I feel like there are only two, the interior and the overall. But so this is one of the things that you're going to start to see is this breakdown of different parts of the home. And this does come up a little bit in appraising currently, where you'll have someone who's completely redone the inside of their house, but the outside is a work in progress. Or they've just replaced the roof and they painted the siding that costs 20 grand, wood siding, and they did a lot of things on the outside, but the kitchens and bathrooms are still about 40 years old or original. And so all that stuff impacts value. And so now the appraisers have the ability to really separate the way they are looking at and evaluating and adjusting for these kinds of differences. There's a little bit of a warning there, in my opinion, because the ability to separate those things is a little bit more complex than people give people credit for. But ultimately, it will be good in order to understand what adjustments go to where and what the appraisers are attributing to what. The roadmap. So you're not being just thrown out there in la la land trying to figure out this new report and trying to figure out what is where. The GSEs have put out a reference guide. It's for some unknown reason they call it Appendix F-1. That seems like a good name for it. It's not even that really easy to find because there's also an Appendix A, B, C, D, and E and F, and E and G, and all these other ones on the same page. But this is the one that really will show you each data point and by number there. And then also it will tell you, sorry, I thought it was the next slide. It will tell you, you can now in that reference guide, go find 1.003 and it will tell you exactly what's supposed to go there. This is really helpful for subsections of the report, such as location, neighborhood boundaries. I think that was one that's come up in an appraisal that came through our office. There's no real clear way where to put neighborhood boundaries, and so there is a place it goes, and it's the same way as it is now. There should be a north, a south, an east, and a west, and so this reference guide is going to show you where that stuff is. So if you're thinking, if you have a checklist and you're like, I need to find the neighborhood boundaries, you can ultimately go to Appendix F-1 and find where that should go, and most importantly, that's where it should go in every single appraisal. That's where it should go for every single appraiser, and that's where it should go regardless of what's going on. Some other things we wanted to talk about are these other options that are out there currently and that are being brought into all of your different product advisors and desktop underwriters. So there you put all your loan information in, your property information, and they tell you what kind of valuation you need. Sometimes they're allowing for no appraisal, an appraisal waiver, and sometimes they allow for a desktop URAR, and sometimes they allow for a hybrid URAR. These I've been told, based on some webinars I've sat in on with Fannie Mae's chief appraiser, these are supposed to be related to the property itself and related to the information that they have about the property. These options are supposed to be not about the borrower or the borrower's creditworthiness, and it's supposed to be about the property. So the two options that they have out there are desktop URARs and the hybrid URAR. There's some problems with these. These are not as easy to pull off as people think they are, and the cost savings becomes difficult to find sometimes. And so we've seen very few of these. Specifically, the desktop one sounds great. As an appraiser, it sounds great. But unfortunately, no one has to visit the property. Unfortunately, one of the requirements that they have is that you have to have a floor plan inside the report. And the floor plan has to have exterior dimensions, interior walls and doors, windows, and also room dimensions. So it's a pretty extensive floor plan, which, by the way, that is a higher threshold than you see for a normal appraisal. And a normal appraisal just has to have a sketch, is what they call it. And that just means exterior dimensions and interior room labels. So that's all that's required for an actual appraisal. But for a desktop appraisal, they require a floor plan. And one of our issues that we just haven't seen a way to get past is, how do you get a floor plan? I mean, there's these new technology and apps that can draw these, but someone has to go there and do that. And that's what you find with whenever people get appraisal waivers, they get what's called a property data report. And that's when an inspector actually goes there. But since that doesn't happen with the desktop, how to get this floor plan is baffling to us all. I've talked to other AMCs about this as well, and they don't fully understand it. Ultimately, if the lender has the ability to get a floor plan, which sometimes happens, sometimes real estate agents will do what's called a matter point, then those are valid options, and that's what we would give to the appraiser. Otherwise, we'd have to send an inspector out there, and the cost savings is officially gone. I would argue that it might be more expensive than just sending the appraiser out there the first time. The other option is a hybrid. A hybrid URAR typically follows in a property data report. The property data report has to be given to the appraiser, and that has the floor plan in it. It also has all the photos taken by the inspector. So it's a very comprehensive report that is given to them. One of the issues here, though, is that it costs money to send a property data inspector out there, and the cost savings is just not there. It would, just like the desktop URAR, if I have to send someone out there, then it now costs more than a normal appraisal does. And so there are really a lot of constraints on these two particular products, but they're out there. And hopefully, as technology advances and it's possible borrowers could help do the floor plan with an app, then these other options might exist, and we can continue to explore those. What about loans not being sold to Fannie and Freddie? Well, they don't tell us what to do. I like to say, if you're not selling to Fannie or Freddie, then you can do whatever you want. The old adage in appraisal world is, I can do an appraisal on the back of a napkin, right? I can just sit down with a piece of paper and write out an appraisal. It's real hard to do it that way, but you can certainly do it that way. And from a lending standpoint, if you're not selling to Fannie or Freddie, or you're not selling that particular loan, then you can certainly continue to use the current legacy forms. Most appraisers have indicated that they would charge less for the legacy forms, similar to kind of the fees that they charge now. And so this is a valid option. If you're doing home equity lines now, you're probably you could be using a desktop appraisal, not the desktop URAR, or a 704. These are all just legacy forms. They're all forms that existed at one point and now they don't, and people still use them to serve their purpose. And so you'll continue to be able to do that with your current 1004s and 1025s. Those are absolutely valid options, and I think we're going to see that for a while. I think we're going to see a prolonged period of continue to use those forms. One of the real issues with that is, if you decide to sell it later, the switch is not easy for an appraiser. It's not easy. It's not pushing a button and now it's on the new form. It's really starting over. And so that's just something you really need to worry about and to think about. A couple of other issues is that investors might require 3.6, so whatever investors you have. And finally, at some point, if you're using a CU score as a underwriting tool, it's entirely probable that UCDP wouldn't allow uploads of anything other than 3.6, which means that you wouldn't be able to get the SSRs, and that piece of underwriting help that you've been getting through those tools just wouldn't exist in the same way. And that's a pretty big concern, but that's not something that they talked about currently, about when they would stop allowing 2.6 uploads. So what now? This is a really good time to talk about what should we do moving forward. Well, we need to start developing new review processes. You need a new review checklist, and you really need to start having internal meetings about your new processes. Also, you just need to start testing these orders. Test now, like now is the time. We really suggest that we're testing them. So if you're using us as an AMC, please contact us, and we'll start the process of identifying some files that are helpful. just in the same way that lenders want to start testing these files, appraisers also want to start testing them. Appraisers have no idea really what's involved in these new forms other than what they've been told or they took a continuing ed class. And so they're all very eager to like start testing these things out. The key here is that we need to start doing things that you're not going to sell, that need to be portfolio, things that have flexible timing. So no purchases, really just refis, home equity lines, things of that nature, because things can happen to where it could take a little bit longer than normal. And then really just start with kind of easy properties. That we're trying real hard to avoid these oceanfront or those kinds of stuff that really are complex in normal times, especially now trying to add it to these new forms. And finally, we really think you should start reviewing your SSR findings that come back on these tests, making sure that they all still line up with what you're expecting to see, and your follow up is still kind of what you need to see. Use Appendix F-1. It's there. You can just Google it, Appendix F-1. You are at UAD 3.6, and you'll find it. It's an important tool. And then finally, to start training your review teams. That's also something that we can help with at Nexus. We're in this, and we've been doing this for a while, and so we're happy to sit down with your review teams and your underwriters to really talk through the processes that you have in place now, but also what would probably be best moving forward. And oh, nope, that is not it. Great. This is really important as well, assignment management. So if you are doing appraisals yourself, then this is really important. If you're using an AMC, this is really important. Randomly sending out 3.6 orders is not a good idea. You have to identify appraisers who are willing to do them. Some might accept them and also not know what all is involved. We have sent out emails to appraisers, and we have a list of appraisers who are interested in testing. Most importantly, you have to review these properties before you start assigning them and deciding you're going to do a 3.6 order. Once waterfronts, all these really complex properties are not good test cases. It really we got to flag this complexity before it reaches the appraiser. If not, we're going to run into some significant delays, and it's going to end up, really causing some troubles for everyone involved. Another really important thing is to provide complete information up front. While there is only one report type, if it's a 1025, a multifamily, if it's a 2-unit or a 4-unit, then the fee is higher. We need to know that when we're ordering things. We still need to know what kind of property they are when they're ordering in order to figure out exactly what it is the appraiser is being asked to do. And this will resolve our fee and timing issues. And before we get to a problem, we're really trying to be proactive in our problem solving here. And I think we have the ability to do it if we just follow these kinds of rules. And this is stuff we're already employing. We're already looking up these properties before we're assigning them. We already know our appraisers well enough to know who's taking this kinds of stuff and who's not. And so it's coming along really well. One other thing I think it's important to know about appraisers is we all use appraisal software, and they're even further behind than everyone else. So there's one major appraisal software that you still can't do 3.6 orders. So I sent out emails to appraisers and I use ACI, which is the software, and they said we can't do it yet. And there's some other ones that are set up, but they're not great. So this is another problem we're running into, and knowing which ones of your appraisers can do it and which ones can't, and which ones use different software is important to know. And that's it. So that's URAR. That's where we are and where we're going. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and we're happy to address them and talk about them. Otherwise, it's certainly a thing that you can email me about. My email address is there. You're more than welcome to call me or email me and ask questions around this, and also just like processes and ask for help. Even if you're not one of our clients, that's totally fine. I genuinely believe we're all in this together, and we're trying our best to help each other through this change. And we're Maine and New England in general is a small area, and we're all using the same appraisers, and all the appraisers want to do well as they can. So it's really important. But other than that, if no one has any questions, I just wanted to thank you all for being here, and feel free to reach out and get in touch. Thank you so much.